Maggie Oliver is a former detective who worked on the first investigation and became a whistleblower when the case was dropped.
They will still say now, well, lessons have been learned. Things are much different now 15 years on. Well, I will tell them that there are many things that are not any different. And that is because I know that to be the case.
Are you saying that you're still being inundated with complaints of abuse now?
Massively.
Current abuse?
Current abuse. Current abuse every day.
These rapes were never recorded, and that is a failure. And it isn't a mistake, it was a deliberate and intentional desire to bury the truth. This has been 15 years of my life. It has almost destroyed me. I've lost my job, I've lost my home, I've lost my health. Joan has lost her granddaughter. All those children that we knew were being abused were cast aside. How many more children have those abusers abused in 15 years? It is unforgivable. And this report makes me feel vindicated. It actually gives me a sense of closure. And actually, the fact that these 4 people sitting here have made this public makes me want to sing from the rooftops, to be honest, because I never thought this day would come. What is the real cost of all these lies? 15 years. The perpetrators that we knew on Operation Augusta were abusing generations of children, were allowed to walk free.
This wasn't a mistake by senior police officers. This was a deliberate closing down of a live investigation because for whatever reason they couldn't be bothered. They left those kids to their own devices. They let the men continue to abuse children. They will not have stopped. For me, there should be accountability now.
Maggie's the only person here today who's used the word cover-up.
Joining me now is Maggie Oliver, former detective for Greater Manchester Police, who blew the whistle on the force's child abuse failures. How do you investigate these kind of cases? Are they different from other cases?
Yeah, they take time, they take commitment, and overall, the kids that are speaking to you have to trust you. And the message that this sends out is that the police and the authorities cannot be trusted. You only have to look. Today I hear about resources, but even today we are hearing about the CPS only prosecuting the easiest of rapes to prosecute. If we use those kinds of criteria, all these grooming trials will never come to court because they take time, they take resources, they take commitment, and the kids that are going to speak have to trust the authorities. This is still an area where there is really all that is, I hear time and time again, are empty words. We now need action. We need openness, transparency, honesty, and a real desire to do something about this. And that will take money, time, and commitment.
Involved in Operation Augusta, you got those girls and their families to trust you. It got shut down. You blew the whistle. You've been fighting for them all this time. How do you feel today reading this report?
I worked on the report with Malcolm and Gary for 2 years. This is complete vindication for me personally. I feel a bit overwhelmed with it actually because it's been a very lonely journey to here. But what I'm really over the moon about is that the kids that were failed, including Victoria, but many other children on Operation Augusta, it is now recognised publicly that they were failed, massively failed. This was not a mistake. This was a deliberate decision to close down what was a very successful investigation by Greater Manchester Police.
The evidence for that, in the sense they do talk about it being a resourcing decision. That's what the evidence suggests. It was a resourcing decision.
No, a resourcing decision to close the job down. We had 97 offenders on a database. That was the tip of the iceberg. The report refers to 26 children, and in the vast majority of the cases of those 26 children, the review team, Malcolm and Gary, established that in their opinion there was sufficient evidence to proceed. So this isn't, it was a deliberate decision to close it down.
And why do you think that you weren't listened to?
I was just a detective. I was one voice, and at this time my husband was terminally ill and died, so it never left me, but I had no evidence. You know, but what is the consequence of all these lies over all these years. I mean, I didn't resign after Operation Augusta, but then I ended up working on Operation Span, and I saw the same failures that I had seen 5 years before on Operation Augusta repeated. That's why I resigned, and that now is why I am working with the Centre for Women's Justice as well, and 3 of the failed victims from the Rochdale investigation to go to court under human rights legislation, because they were failed too. And as we stand now, this is part 1 of the review. There is part 2, and I will tell you that Rochdale Social Services are refusing to share their information, their evidence with the review team.
So even now?
Even now. And GMP have fought tooth and nail for almost a year to prevent publication of this review. So I hear all these words. I've been hearing them for 15 years. It almost destroyed my life. This is vindication, it is the truth. But for the kids, you can never put it right. Those men were allowed to continue to abuse other children for another 15 years. That is unforgivable. And the people who made those decisions were senior public service people, chief constables, who have a duty to protect the vulnerable. They should be investigated for misconduct in a public office, and that is my personal opinion. Can I just come in very briefly and say that Operation Augusta dealt with children in care. Operation Span did not. This is not just about children in care, this is about children. Children who were perhaps seen as an underclass. That is as much of an attitude as perhaps the ethnicity of the offender and the children.
Thank you so much. Maggie Oliver.